Yeah.
Wonderful. So, thank you everyone for joining in this masterclass on careers in public policy. And what we intend to do in this masterclass is provide you a roadmap on how you can explore the field of public policy. So, before we begin, I just wanted to kind of touch upon, because I came to know that the demography of the participants here is maybe 50% or more are unaware of what public policy is all about. So what we did was we tried to cover up all the basics, uh, you know, and we divided the agenda into 7 different points, where we first try to understand what public policy is all about, and then we try to explore career paths, then we try to understand the key skills, then education and professional development, and then we try to understand what navigating the job market would look like, and then we have some bonus points for you. If you look at the first point, we try to understand that public policy refers to the decisions and actions which are taken by any power of authority. Now, power authority can be anyone. It could be the central government, it could be the state government, it could be the relevant, authority of relevant respective jurisdiction. But it depends on the case to case of where does the policy actually belong. Now, the second point talks about what is the aim of public policy. So in this we try to cover that all the public policies are aimed at solving public problems, no matter what they are, no matter what it is, and the overall aim of public policy is to improve the well-being of the individuals of the society. And needless to say that any kind of policy that is made affects almost all aspects of our life and the ecosystem. And then obviously all the policies that you look at in your wherever you look at, all the policies are actually shaped by different factors. They could be political, they could be social economical, they could be cultural, they could be varied, various kinds of reasons for which a policy comes into place. So I tried to summarize what understanding public policy is all about in this one statement. And if you just go through it, if you want to take a screenshot, please do. So it's all about that understanding public policy helps us comprehend how decisions are made. That's number one. How resources are allocated. That's number two. And how policies impact society. That's number three, which makes it a crucial field for addressing societal challenges and creating positive change. So if I were to define public policy, or maybe help you understand public policy in a nutshell, this is what it is all about. Now, this is very interesting topic, which talks about policy and law are both interconnected. So many times, every law. So when you talk about law and policy, it's essential to understand that every law is a result of any of policy. So policy is the first step for creation of a law, but not every policy could be law, because it's not just it's not that every law is the result of a policy, but there are several other instances due to which a law is created wherein there is no role of public policy, right? So if you were to understand this statement, then every law is policy, but every policy is not law. Now, policy cycle is another essential characteristic of public policy. And Ashima, why don't you take over from here?
Sure, perfect. Thanks, Divyaish. Welcome everyone to the session. Really grateful. And we'll be, moving forward and understanding the basics, and then we'll obviously go back to the major part of here. Now, the major part, right? We're trying to understand what public policy is, right? Is at the end. I think, and I believe that the major comprehension has to also come from understanding what are the activities or the processes that are conducted or carried out in the life cycle of a policy. What is the starting point and what is the ending point, and what are the middle steps that are carried out so that we have a policy cycle in place. Divesh, you can go back to the screen. I'll tell you next, and that's when you move forward. Thank you. A very important aspect is also to understand, right, that somehow our understanding of public policy is limited to two major pillars or two major platforms. We tend to understand public policy as something that is happening within the structures of the parliament, or in the form of a very authoritative government like structures or a government like platform, or we have understood public policy as a platform which is being conducted or carried out by bureaucrats, general, our officials, our ISUPS aspirants who have also given the exam today, but something that is happening or it is evolved or done by these bureaucrats and the district collectors. Our understanding, I would say, has been very restricted to these two pillars. But we also have to understand that policy cycle altogether or public policy is much beyond these two basic steps as well. Uh, Divesh, next. You can take a screenshot of, a very vanilla like, and I would also give a disclaimer here. This is a very, very easy and a layman understanding of what policy cycle is, of how policies are not just framed or made, but also how are they translated from paper to action. That is what a policy cycle will typically give you. Obviously, the process is much more complex. There are multi-layered factors involved, but we've tried to create a very vanilla like understanding, breaking it down to 5 major parts in it. Please take a screenshot or write it in your notes to understand what public policy structure or sector can look like. There are 5 major parts to understand here. The first is obviously the problem identification. Like Devesh has just mentioned, right? What is the aim of a public policy? It's either to solve a societal problem or to improve the well-being of individuals or as well as of the ecosystem around us. So there are obviously problems that are happening, and on an average, we see every day there's something, one of the big, that keeps on affecting or impacting the society altogether. But it's not that every problem will be prioritized in a manner that a decision or a policy will be drafted to address that. It can also happen that there is no root cause to understand why is the problem so repetitive in nature that in the last 75 years, for example, we are unable to solve that problem. This is the first basic step where a lot of public policy professionals are also involved in, to identify the problem that will be a prioritized, b done a proper root cause analysis to understand what needs to be put out in front of the powers of authority to even work and really figure out a solution, either in form of a policy, law, scheme, mission, campaign, so forth and so forth, to begin with. The second part of it, right? Once we've identified, let's say we've identified a very niche problem that is impacting, for example, COVID-19 vaccination that was happening at that time, or even right now, there is a lot of discussion for foundation literacy and numeracy, FNL in education sector. We pick up this problem, we do a root cause analysis, and we come for policy formulation. This is where you'll see a lot of public policy professionals involved in very different capacities. They'll do expert understanding, research, analysis of what the past has happened, what are the comparative ways of addressing this problem, what can a policy look like, whether should we form a law, whether should we form a scheme, whether should we form a campaign altogether, and then understanding and having involving a lot of different stakeholders, right? There's a lot of beneficiaries that this policy will touch upon or will need a lot of resources from. So a lot of expert consultation here, stakeholder management, and even advocacy work along with research is where you will find at the second stage, which is policy formulation. This is also where you'll see the actual drafting of a policy in whatever manner or a form has to happen. This is where you'll see MPs, MLAs, and even your drafting legislative assemblies get involved and come forward with either a draft version on which you can also as public comment, and then move forward to a final version of a policy to get adopted. That's the third stage of policy cycle, right? And just from a very layman style, it's not that you form a policy, this is the final policy, it goes to a power of authority, and they just officiate it. That's not how it typically will happen, right? There will be another set of discussions, there will be another set of consultation, expert review, policy recommendation, analysis that happen for them to even ascertain what is the mindset, what is the value addition that is being brought through this entire policy that has been formulated to address a specific problem. You will see a lot, we'll talk about the stakeholders and the career paths that you will have, but you'll also see how in policy adoption, it's not just the signing and officiating of making a policy from draft to public or to an official document. There's a lot of background work that happens at this stage. Now this is, after the third step is where we will say that, okay, in a simpler manner, the policy has been formed. But that's not it, right? This is right now a policy, public policy is just on paper. We are still yet to see how this policy will be translated into action, which is where your policy strategy implementation really comes in being. To take it down from a paper, to bring down and make, either SOPs, guidelines, bylaws of how the policy will now work in different demographics, it will work in different states, different regions, what kind of budgetary support is required, what should be prioritized. There's a lot of discussions and again a lot of consultation strategy building that we do at this stage. And then finally at the grassroots level, the policy is implemented for at the end the beneficiaries that it is made for, right? For the problem that we are trying to solve in. I would request everyone to please mute yourself. You can put down the questions on the chat. Thank you. Once the policy is implemented, and again, this is not it, that's not the policy cycle, right? We started with the problem in mind, we started with an objective or a goal in our mind that we need to either improve or we need to solve. You've made a policy, you've implemented the policy, now you need to see whether that policy made any success, whether that policy made any headway with the objective, or whether there was a delta or a deficiency. That's where policy evaluation and policy revision comes in being. When you do a lot of monitoring and evaluation analysis, to see the success, to see the areas of development that are there, and then you again form a circular motion, right? You identify a new problem within that and you revise the policy, or you go through with another policy altogether. In a nutshell, right, this is a very, very simpler version of what I've tried to explain it to you of a policy cycle. But the idea behind this is that you try to see through the policy sector, public policy sector, as an employee, and understand that there are too many ways, there are too many scenarios that you can be involved in. And that's what we have done, a very vanilla stage. Next. Perfect. We've what we have done is a very, very, I would say it's a very simpler version of understanding public policy, right? The major part of it is that once you've got this small nudge and an idea of what policy sector is all about, you come to start exploring career paths into this in public policy. And when you're trying to explore it, there is a three-step approach that I've devised that really works brilliantly for everyone. It's known as we have devised, it works as SSR, which is sector stakeholder role. What I would request all of you is to do one thing. After the session today, whether you have understood, whether it made sense to you or not, just do, like a humble request, just do this homework for me. Sit down with your thoughts and process your, introspect your area of interest, which is in the form of sector, the problem that you want to solve in. Understand the stakeholders and the role that you're interested in. Do that homework for yourself to have a better direction and a better clarity of the market that you want to enter it, or what kind of a career do you want to explore. So it's a homework that I want to also give you upfront here. Next. Great. We'll deep dive into the three-step approach that I'm just talking about, of what it is and how can you really use it or leverage it for your advantage. The first part obviously is the sector area, the intersection between any sector and public policy. Divyaish has beautifully explained, right, that public policy touches upon almost all parts of our lives, not just individuals, the environment, the animals, the microorganisms, to the industries.
Well, I'll try to explain what she was talking about. So while exploring career paths in public policy, one of the most important things you need to consider is the sector that you want to explore. Now, while with my working experience at FICCI, one thing what I learned was that there are almost 90 sectors wherein the Indian industry operates, or maybe more than that. And every sector has got opportunities. Every sector has got some issues that they want to look, that they want the government to look upon. And for every issue they have to give their submissions or representations to the government, and that is where the role of a public policy professional comes in. So you know I was just telling them that every sector has got some issues, and with my working experience at FICCI, we had around more than 90 plus sectors that we are working on, and every sector had some issues. So
Yeah,
the more the
sector.
sectors, the more the issues, the more the opportunities is what I was talking about. Please go
Yeah,
ahead.
great. Great. Thank you so much for taking it forward. I really apologize, everyone here. So perfect, right? We're talking about sectors in terms of what are the interest areas that you can explore. Very quickly, if someone can just come off mute and tell me how many sectors do you think are there that public policy can intervene in? I'll call someone if doesn't no one really unmutes themselves. Niyati, do you
Maybe
want
they
to
can
take a
write in the
try?
maybe then they can type it in the chat box also.
Yeah, anything. Perfect. We have a conversation. 100 plus, I believe. Shweta, definitely, right? There are so many of them. Anyone else has a question? Okay, someone has personally messaged. Okay, 122. That's a very exact number. Interesting. Almost every sector, right, Mansi, right? Every sector, every part of our lives has an intervention of public policy. Next, Divish, next. What we try to do is this, and this is how I would advise all of you to start your exploring your navigation or your policy sector here, is to understand the area that you're really interested in. Is there any sector that you want to get involved in? Is there any problem statement that you are really passionate about, or you believe that you will be better suited? There are certain, obviously, areas which are upcoming. There are certain sectors that have been there for the last 75 years and will continue to move forward. What we've done is give you a very small snapshot, right? Environment, climate, sustainability, something that's really, really moving forward. It's also the need of the hour. A lot of public policy professionals are getting involved in climate space, to address the problems that are there. Education, healthcare have always been there and will always be there as well. Something that I'm very passionate, and I work as a public policy consultant in these sectors. This technology, IT, digital development, IP, you'll have Divyaish here, who is an expert in this sector area, who has a keen interest of making an improvement in this ecosystem. Livelihood, rural development, urban landscape, for example. Or you can be someone who has a very systemic and a very overview viewpoint, right? You don't believe or you don't identify with one particular sector. You are someone who wants to make an impact on all the sectors across worldwide, right? Across the country. And governance may be an area that can be of an interest to you, and that can be something that you can look forward. There are obviously more that you can also explore once you end this conversation with us today. But the first step of how do you explore the market, how do you make a transition or a career in public policy, the first step has to be for you to either eliminate sectors that you're not interested in, or identify problem statements that you're really passionate to solve in. Once you have done this, you've got some clarity, some light to move forward. Next, the next part that I would want you to do is sit down and understand the different key stakeholders that are there, who will also be your potential employers. Please keep taking screenshots, keep taking notes. This is going to be very useful once you go back to understand the sector altogether. So the next, very, very vanilla definition, like a division that we have done, right? Division I have put out some of the key stakeholders, also potential, all who involved, engage with public policy professionals from across the sectors to come and work for them and to come and work for the sector altogether. Some of them are very, very new. Some of them are very trending. Some of them have always been there and are of your area of interest, right? What you can do is identify certain employers that you really want to work with, or eliminate the ones that you don't want to engage with at this stage of your life. Can be a great way to navigate again the direction of your career pathway. Very quickly, right, when we are talking about government as a key stakeholder, we are talking about both central and state level, even municipal panchayat level, authoritative government level mechanism that is built in. You have, if I have lawyers and law students here as well, right, we are talking about that you can be involved in the legislative part of it, which is of it. You can be working with the MPs, MLA. We have Shivam here, right? He's done his fellowship, the LAM fellowship, Legislative Assembly, sorry, the 8th fellowship. There are other fellowships that are providing you an opportunity to work directly with the legislative arm. Currently, you have Mukherjee Fellowship, which is open and is calling for a lot of scholars, young professionals to join them and work along with the legislative arm of the government level. You can also be working with the executive side, which is where a lot of your ministries are there, your agencies, committees, departments that you can be involved in. You can start working with them. Also with the district collectors, zilla parishes, that's where you can really make a division. And you also have a lot of young professional fellowships offering you that opportunity, or a consultant role opportunities, that both Divesh and I have taken forward and worked for. Lastly, in the government, very very new and very interesting is also that judiciary is also calling for a lot of public policy professionals, not as a judicial clerks, but as a research assistant or an associate to work with them. Great avenue, new avenue, and different aspect of you to start looking at public policy. Think tanks, again, I would take few minutes to explain about think tanks. Right, think tanks are basically your institutions who are working in public policy sector to make innovative solutions for the problems, to generate new ideas, because the world is changing so rapidly. They are providing you with experts the idea that can come forward. Also, they're doing a lot of roles in public policy. Right, remember the policy cycle, they're involved in almost all aspects, either through advocacy or through research analysis. They're doing stakeholder management, bringing along all the partners together so that there is some traction, there is a movement in the policy, and there are no obstacles to move forward. You right now have Digital India Act that is coming along. You'll see a lot of consultations that is happening in a number of cities right now. You'll find think tanks, right? There is Niti Aayog. You will find civil society, Center for Civil Society, CRPR. There are so many think tank institutes, either working as independent or associated with government, private, for profit, non profit, or even like a global think tank that has an office in India. You can be someone who wants to work at, in an institute that provides such an expert insight and evidence into the policy sector. NGOs are my one of my favorite areas. I also have co-founded an NGO and believe that they are the most important part of the policy cycle and public policy. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't look at NGOs in that manner, and that is something personally I'm trying to really break the myth around. You're looking at NGOs, they're not only involved in implementing the final policy in action at the grassroots level, but they're also involved in a lot of advocacy movements. How do you identify which problem in the policy cycle? NGOs can be a great asset who help you in that identification process altogether. You want research, you want analysis to be done, NGOs can again be a great support that provide you that work. So don't look at NGOs and think them that they're an external part of the public policy. They are very much an internal part, and you can be working with NGOs that are sector specific. For example, Teach for India that I did, which is education specific, or you can be working with NGOs that are looking at intersectionality of different sector areas, gender with climate change, gender with agriculture, anything that you are really passionate to work with. The next type of stakeholder, right, you have your international and multilateral organizations. And funny enough, right, in our form that we had given you guys, a lot of people had questions about how do you work with UN in India, or how do you work with World Bank and IFC. So very interesting, right? These are again a very important stakeholder in public policy, or through different roles that are they are playing in. They're not just involved in advocacy, they can also be involved in research. But again, another important aspect that they play is providing resources, either human resources, funding resources, that are working and provide you assistance of implementing the policy or identification of the problem, or even for policy adoption recommendations that are coming through. You can be someone who are interested to make that journey and to be involved with them. The next part, right, companies, something that we are recently seeing a lot of public policy professionals be interested in. Google, Twitter, regardless of the layers, right, that's obviously there, but regardless of that, you have a lot of MNCs, edtech sectors, fintech companies, e-commerce companies, who are hiring a lot of public policy professionals to not just make their policies compliant, but also to have and raise their concerns in an advocacy or a recommendation or even in a policy framework with other stakeholders to the government. So a lot of interest is being generated, and I think we have one of our I'm not sure if that person is here, who also works with Google as a public policy professional and a consultant. So great way, great stakeholder that you can look at to work in. The next part, okay, we are covering is academic institutes. Very interesting. Again, I think there is a certain room around understanding what an IIT, IIM, Azim Premji University, TIS, Ashoka, Jindal, so many and so forth, right? These central state, even private universities, what role do they have in public policy? Very interesting enough, right? They are reputed with providing high powered research articles, not just white paper, and a lot of stakeholder analysis, capacity training of how do you train other professionals about public policy is also done by these academic institutes. And you have a lot of opening right now as well. You'll see it is hiring a number of public policy professionals coming from different backgrounds, either legal or other one as well, who can come and provide again assistance to them to formulate whether more effective analysis to the public policy sector. The other, I think, is the favorite of Divyaish, because he comes from that. He's an expert in that area, which is obviously your industry bodies, associations, expert associations, right? There's CII, FICCI, ASCOM, NASCOM, ICMR. A lot of these expert associations, which obviously provide better research and recommendations for policy, but at the same time have a lot of work in advocacy, stakeholder engagement, uh, 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 as well as a lot of crisis management for that particular sector that they can involve in. So you can look at this stakeholder and also be very interested like Divyaish and be like, yes, I want to work with FICCI and go on. The last obviously is consulting firms, right? These can be your legal consulting firms, law firms included as well. These can be management consulting firms who have a social sector or a policy sector vertical. These can also be your social sector impacting consulting firms, right? Such as Samagra, Satva, GDI, who are purely working at an intersection to improve or enhance the impact at the societal level. Or these can be boutique consulting firms who are working for different clients, NGOs, non-profits, UN, to have a better work for public policy. For example, APCO, Edelman, Global Advisory, Tony Blair. And this is where you can look at different roles that you can play, not just for research but strategy building. Remember policy cycle and understand of different avenues that you can have while you're working for this. I know we don't have enough time. This is something that I can talk about for like 4 hours and give a proper breakdown of what stakeholders and what opportunities do you have under each of the segment. But I think if you are someone who's starting or even you're transitioning, I think this is enough information for you to feed in to take it forward of navigating your journey. The first obviously was the sector that we navigated. The second is the type of employers or the stakeholders that are working in this sector. Next. Great. The third, right? The third step of how do you get yourself a direction is you identify what are your qualifications, what are your academic professional qualifications, what are your interest areas, and then map up with the roles that are typically offered by either of any of those key stakeholders in any of the sectors that are there. Next. Perfect. Please take a screenshot. Again, I would say this is a very vanilla division that we have done, accumulated everything together of what your role, what your work, and your job profile can look like as a public policy professional. Regardless, you are coming as a lawyer, you are coming as an economic graduate, history graduate. This is what different work that you can take up. Very quickly, I think these are also self-explanatory to put forward. I'll just take, I think, another 30-40. Research and analysis, obviously, this is much beyond than legal, but you're looking at other factors. Remember the waste point, right? Policy is impacted by a lot of other sectors, socio-economic sectors, cultural sectors, regional factors that are there. And that is a kind of policy research analysis that you can offer, you can provide to do it. Policy formulation, remember the MP-MLA work that we have done. Policy recommendation in terms of understanding, doing analysis of what is the better way of solving that problem? Is it an act? Is it a scheme? Is it a pan India? Is it one area specific? You can do a lot of recommendations of how even the problem can be solved in a particular manner. Strategy and implementation, a lot of consulting work. This is something that I am very passionate about, and I do and I provide, is in terms of once you have figured out the policy in paper, how do you take it forward? What kind of funding is required? Who do you approach? What kind of stakeholders can we really bring in together to make sure that we are able to achieve the purpose of the policy? Communications, I think this area will always be the next big thing. I know right now is generative AI, right? That's the next big thing that's happening even in public policy. But I believe personally that communications, both external and internal, will always be the next big thing. The way that you have thought about the research that you have done, the understanding, right? The recommendations that you have in your mind, how do you translate all of that into, let's say, 4 slides, 2 page of concept note, 2 page of proposal to an authoritative figure, either a principal secretary, whoever that you are speaking to, and providing that information in a manner that that person also has the same amount of information that you have, but just in like 2 pages or 4 slides. That's where communication as a professional is growing. You'll see a lot of comms role that opens up in policy. There are so many people who are providing great support in just making a transition into this sector as well as a communication consultant. Then you have monitoring and impact, which is something I believe as a skill plays with a lot of data, statistics, primary research that you do, but you can be someone who can take forward impact assessment. Government advisory, policy advocacy, stakeholder management, crisis management, right? We saw our work happen during COVID, and we saw how many different consultancies or even government individuals, policy professionals had set up their centers, call rooms, emergency rooms, and how were they working of how to address each of the problems that were coming forward. All of that is public policy professional work that you saw. And the last, obviously, but not the least, will be your corporate affairs for the companies that you're working for. Okay, I'm going to take a pause here. Very quickly, Divyaish, move to the next slide. Great. I want all of you to please look at this structure again. There's a lot of information that we have given to you. I hope you've made notes, you've taken screenshots to understand. Go back and do this analysis for yourself. Identify your path and explore it yourself in terms of sectors, stakeholders, and the roles that are matching up with your qualifications. And then take it forward from there of how do you find jobs and how do you make your profile better or ready to the roles that you really are interested in taking forward. Great. Next. Very important. I mean, we get a lot of questions, right? In terms of how are lawyers working in public policy. Both Divyaish and I are lawyers, come with very different backgrounds. I'm a corporate securities market lawyer who's made a transition for the last 3-4 years, and I'm working in public policy sector altogether. Divyaish has done brilliantly well in terms of government advisory with FICCI and is still working as a public policy consultant. So what are the different avenues that if we can only talk about lawyers here? Next slide. Great. Guys, please take a screenshot. Perfect. Please understand that again, in this entire conversation that we are going to have today, a lot of it is structured, bucketed, and in a very layman vanilla term so that you get an overview of it, like a bird's eye view of the entire work that you can do it. When we're talking about lawyers in public policy, typically three routes that we can look at of how you can be involved in this. The first step or the first role that you can look yourself is to get integrated into the policy drafting and formulation and adoption exercise altogether. You can be someone who's very interested to work in the parliament. It's such a great part that we had the new parliament inaugurated today, and we're talking about all of that here as well, right? So you can be someone who says, as a lawyer, I want to use up my legal drafting skill set to a better advantage and be involved in drafting of the policies, adoption of the policies, where you are still working in a legal manner or a legal scope altogether. This can either be working directly with MPs and MLAs or taking up fellowships like Shivam has done for LAM, Mukherjee Fellowship, for example, like I mentioned. You can also be someone who's working with legislative assemblies. Even state legislative assemblies open up contractual research roles, legal roles for public policy professionals, where you can help the assembly altogether, the departments, the committee reports altogether in terms of drafting the policy. Few examples just to bring out here. Obviously, PRS Legal, which offers the LAM fellowship. You have Vidhi Legal as well, which I believe is one of the most sought after employer or a stakeholder here for lawyers when they are looking at public policy. Great work that they are doing, and then you can also be involved in this aspect as well. The second avenue, right? This is for people who are really passionate in this manner to understand. The second avenue that you can really take up is that you have this association with legal framework in different kinds of role in policy, right? Either consulting or legal compliance role or even litigation in public policy. And just to give you an example, right, you can be someone who's working with executive authorities, which is your ministry, committees, departments, agency, commissions altogether, but as a legal consultant or a legal compliance employee, or as a hire, whose work is revolves around ensuring that there is legal matchmaking that we have done has happened, everything is coherent to the constitution, to the laws that we are looking forward, and you still have an association with legal terminology altogether. Or you can be someone who wants to work with certain law firms or in-house firms, or even certain boutique firms which are working at an intersection of law and policy, in different capacities, research, litigation, whatever it is, and still be a legal compliant officer or a legal consultant to provide your work there. Some examples obviously are ICAI if you're interested in tech policy. If you have a very generic governance attitude, then you can look at PACTA consulting as well. Great intersections that they're doing. Or you can also look at Center for Law and Public Research, great intersection for legal compliance consulting and public policy. Or you can be someone who wants to do litigation, right? You can still be a public policy professional whose major work is for also litigation and litigating. You have Internet Freedom Foundation, if digital rights is what really motivates you to move forward. You can be working again with CLPR, ICAI, sorry, you can be working with IFF, CLPR, and even PACTA to that matter, and too many other consulting firms, too many other litigation firms that have been set up, which primarily works on one of the sector areas and are still in public policy professional, but they have the tag, the intersectionality between lawyers as well as the public policy sector. The third avenue, right? This is where it becomes very interesting. This is where Divyaish and I both are very invested and interesting, is that there are so many unconventional paths that as a lawyer you can take up in public policy sector. Think about all the entire policy cycle that you can be working in. Also, very important thing that I would want to highlight here, right? Legal education, 5 years of law education, 4 years of working for me, for example, there are certain skills that I've acquired because of a lawyer, being a lawyer, or being a law student. Those skill sets and the entire legal education is something that is now embedded and subsumed in me. Whatever role that I take up, that'll always play as an additional factor or an advantage for me. So I can be someone who look at research, I can be someone who look at strategy consulting and bring a legal flavor to it altogether. But that's not the only thing that I add to the table. I bring in my other skill set, I bring in my other knowledge that is there while I'm implementing policies, or while I'm consulting or strategizing of how the policies can be framed, or for problem identification as well. That does not, those roles typically do not require me to be a lawyer, but they play, I get an additional edge that I'm a lawyer and I bring in certain skill set, legal knowledge to that flavor. And this is, honestly, this area is growing, and I'm sure this is also where a lot of you are interested in the forms that you've mentioned, that your intersectionality with law and public policy can be beyond the nomenclature and involve the skills that you have, and take it forward in any of the areas, in any of the roles that you really want to work in. I'll pause here. I know it's a lot of information, a lot of chat is buzzing, which is great. Please keep adding your questions there, right? It has to be a two-way, and you take up every research. I'll ask Divesh here to join in and like shed his light and take the conversation forward.
Thank you, Ashima. I think you pretty much covered everything in the in your conversation. So I just want to add to that on what the last point that you were mentioning about the lawyers in public policy. One of the one of my most favorite areas where I want lawyers to kind of join in is while working in the policy advocacy segment. I found that there is a need of a lot of lawyers or a lot of law students who want to go into it is legislative drafting, is policy drafting, is policy research, right? So now if you look at the, and that's why wherever I used to go, wherever I used to talk to people, whenever I used to speak to students, one of my core areas is to use your core talking point is to use your legal skills to take some unconventional paths and go into the policy segment. The Ministry of Law and Justice keeps on hiring policy research graduates. Recently, almost all the ministries are coming up with uh, positions specifically dedicated to lawyers. In fact, if you are a lawyer who has completed your LLM or you've completed a PhD, the Quality Council of India has come up with at least 200 vacancies. You can just go and visit their website and you find out that there are, I think, more than 200 vacancies across India, wherein you can, as a lawyer, you can kind of enter the policy segment. So I want to take the conversation forward, and I want to talk about what are the key skills that I have figured out that one needs to be into the public policy space. Now, I've tried to kind of bifurcate the skills into two segments. One is the technical, and the other is the personal skills, right? So when you talk about technical skills, you're talking about basically understanding what the policy is all about, understanding what the problem is all about, understanding what can we do there, what kind of data do we need, what kind of research that needs to be done. So it's a lot on the technical front. So if you look at the technical part of it, the very first part talks about um, research skills are obviously mandatory because policy is all about research. You have to keep researching what is going on in a particular area, what is going on in the geopolitical space. If you're interested into geopolitics, you want to understand what is going on in your neighboring nations and how will that impact us. Then of course we have to analyze the problem, so you need to understand what, like Ashima pointed out, the policy cycle one was uh, where you have to analyze what the problem is all about, and then you have to for that you need some analytical skills. Then you also need some of the data skill sets that are really coming up, because data is the new oil. So you have to understand that what data can be used, how can a particular set of data be used to kind of solve a particular issue, and then you can center your thinking around that and try to connect with stakeholders, find out solutions. Every method that you can, there are various methods that you can employ. And then of course I would like to talk about the drafting skills. Now as a lawyer, I have seen firsthand, and Ashima has also seen firsthand, that how our drafting skills came handy. We used to draft planes, we used to draft contracts, we used to draft written statements and all these things, and somewhere down the line it kind of helped us in drafting policies or policy recommendations, and what are the industry issues. So a lot of the times you have to, because when you're drafting a document, you have to make sure that you're able to convey the message to your listener. Now in when you talk about litigation or when you talk about corporate, your stakeholder may be your client or maybe the court. But in policy space, your stakeholder can be a company, could be a client you're working for, could be the government, could be an embassy that wants some inputs from you. So there are various kinds of stakeholders, and you have to tailor your draft in accordance with them. The next point is something that is very, very crucial, which is having the digital skills in public policy. Now, one thing Ashima was talking about when we discussed about what kind of careers to explore, and then one of the thing that came up was communication, having your communication skills. So nowadays, as we all are aware, that all kinds of communications first happen over the internet. So you have to be very well skilled with how do you operate on the internet, what kind of stakeholders are there on the internet, and how do you present the information on the internet. It's a lot about that. Then of course comes the evaluation, and how you evaluation for me actually means how do you evaluate a particular policy which is already in place. So let's say a policy or maybe a act or maybe something guidelines that were framed 5 years ago, how are they relevant now, and 5 years later when everything has changed. For example, the Information Technology Act that was enacted in 2000 is now undergoing a lot of transformation with, and is now set to be regulating artificial intelligence, because so that is what evaluation is all about, right? Now coming to the personal skills, I think that a lawyer needs to be very well aware of his personal skills, right? And if you're a policy professional, the very first thing you have to have command is your communication. And of course, this comes with time. You can't just rush into everything and think that I'll be an expert from a day in, or maybe a month in, or maybe a year in, because these things take time. You have to understand how do you communicate. What is the stakeholder wanting, and how do you manage the stakeholder, right? Which brings me to the second point, which is stakeholder management, because public policy is a lot about your stakeholders. Now let's say, for example, if the government comes up with a policy, who is the stakeholder there? The stakeholder would be the general public who is going to be there, right? uh, or let's say government comes up with a policy on intellectual property, who is going to be the stakeholder there? The stakeholders would be the IP filings, the companies who keep filing IP applications, because one of the things that the government would want to do is increase intellectual property filings, because that helps us in, improving our rankings in the ease of doing business, right? So a lot of these things, and so as a policy professional, you have to understand uh, who all are our stakeholders, and what is their requirement, and then you adapt to their skills and learn how to manage them effectively so that you solve their problems. Which brings me to the third one, which is obviously problem solving, which is what public policy is all about. And then the next comes is critical thinking, collaboration, and adaptability. These three qualities, specifically collaboration, is something that I have realized in my career, wherein if you want to advocate for a particular policy, or if you want a policy to be a particular way, then you have to be in sync with all the stakeholders. A policy cannot be formed in vacuum. There is no policy that if a policy is formed in vacuum, it is not going to be successful. So that is the reason why the government also keeps on asking for stakeholder recommendation, which is another area where you want to target your career in, right? If you now, for example, the government is now coming up with the Digital India Act or Digital IT Act, something like that, and it is asking the stakeholders to give their recommendation how it should look like, right? So now, who are these stakeholders? Now, these stakeholders could be industry associations, these stakeholders could be companies, and almost everyone that Ashima just pointed out in the previous slide, right? And the next, obviously, the most important one is the adaptability. A policy professional cannot be rigid at all. You cannot be rigid and think that you can solve a problem. You have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible, and you have to be, changing according to the situations. Now, this is another point that I wanted to talk about, which is the educational opportunities that you can, use to advance. What kind of education you need to do to kind of further your career in public policy, whether a law degree is enough or whether what you're doing is enough. So, uh, one of the things that you have to make sure is, for being eligible to apply for a particular position, you have to fit in the eligibility criteria. And if the eligibility criteria wants you to have certain kinds of education, then you have to be, obviously, if you want to go in this sector, then you have to have that kind of education, because that's the kind of candidates they prefer. So I've tried to narrow down, and Ashima, we have tried to narrow down a lot of these skills, a lot of these courses that you might want to pursue if you want to go into the public policy space. Now, first one, we try to bifurcate into three segments. The first one is master programs. The second one is certificate courses, which is aimed at upskilling yourself. And the third one is obviously diplomas, which are certificate courses are very much shorter, maybe 2-3 months, while diplomas are 6 months or 1 year or something like that. Now, when you talk about master programs, we are now seeing, although the number is very less, but we are seeing a number of universities now coming up with separate courses on public policy, about masters in public policy. And from what the JDs I have read in the recent past, in the let's say 3-4 months, masters in public policy is kind of a very preferred education stream that companies want candidates to have, but they do not want exclusive masters in public policy as of now. They just say that a candidate should have a masters in public policy or a masters in economics or an MBA or a masters in public administration. So these are the kind of courses that you may want to pursue. And if you have, like I said before, also if you have an LLM degree, then you can obviously apply for a lot of opportunities. So here are the list of few institutions that kind of provide a master's program. We have ISPP, then you have ISB, TISS, Sajeem Premji University, APUs, IAMs are now also coming up with masters. Then we also have NLSIU. I'm probably missing here, but yes, NLSIU has a master's in public policy course also. So you may want to try that. Now we come up to certificate courses. Now certificate courses are basically aimed at people who, from my understanding, what I have seen is if you're someone who just want to understand what public policy is all about, understand and kind of, you know, measure yourself or whether you'll be able to have an interest in this area or not, then in that case what you can do is the very first step you should do before pursuing a master's, in my opinion, is to do some certificate courses, because I have not done a master's in public policy yet. So whatever public policy, because I use a lot of certificate courses to upskill myself. So these kind of courses help you in kind of understanding what a particular sector is all about. Let's say you want to talk about how evidence in public policy is all about, or you want to talk about what fundamentals in public policy is all about. So these are the kind of things that you may want to explore. We have LLL, who is the partner of this event, who's coming up with a course on public policy. Then we have IITs who provide, I think, education executive courses. Then obviously we have Lokniti by ISPP, and IIG, CCS, etc. Then obviously, just like certificate courses, we have diplomas. We have shorter learning programs, 6 months to 1 year. You can just check out these websites. You can check out these websites, and you will find out, uh, what kind of courses do they offer. Since we are very short on time, so we cannot cover every bit in detail, but we would have loved to do that. Now let's talk about professional development. We have talked about uh, educational development is all about, and now we are going to you know have talk about professional development and how you can develop yourself as a professional. Ashima, would you want to take it from here?
Sure, Divyaish. Thank you so much. Next slide. Great, right? So we've what we've covered, right? We've covered what public policy basics are, policy cycle, what kind of roles, everything that's happening. If you want to enhance and want to advance your education, Devesh has given you a good breakdown of an approach that you can do forward. Now, looking at the questions, right? The major question is, how do we make that step forward? What's the first way for a So what we've tried to do is give you 4 different angles to work on. We would suggest and advise you to do 3 out of 4 for sure, if you're making a headway into public policy. The first obviously is internships, right? That you can be working for. What are internships? I'm sure everyone knows here. But if you are someone who are looking to work with the government in their internship programs, there are certain standard routine internships that these organizations provide, right? You have Niti Aayog, which has internship open up every first 10 days of every month in the entire year. You have Ministry of External Affairs, MeetI, which is your Digital India internship. You can also be working with DFIIT, and depending upon, there's so many Ministry of Women, Child and Women Empowerment as well, who have fixed routine repetitive internships that they offer. These can be either specific to law students or to anyone else as well. So you should be looking at, if you want to make a way into the sector, in form of an internship. Beyond that, you also have routine hirings, right? These are not repetitive, for sure, for definite internship offers will happen, but you can keep an eye on hirings that are happening across the sector depending upon the stakeholder, right? Observer Research Foundation, Invest India, NCTW, they routinely hire, and look out, and open their opportunities every once in 2 months, 3 months, for public policy students or even fresh graduates to come forward and do an internship there. like I mentioned, right, all stakeholders provided, please look at their summer internship and winter internship routine on their websites or any other job portals to understand what are they offering and how do you qualify and you take the application forward. The next part that you have to definitely do is interact with policy through policy competitions, workshops, seminars, and even publications as well, so as to you can increase your own research or understanding but also your branding altogether. Work and participate in these study competitions happening across the country right now. Enactors takes a very heavy front when they're organizing all such competitions in colleges. Policy drafting competitions also are happening, which are online as well. You can be someone who's doing journal articles, research article publications, or you are someone who wants to talk about tropical issues and tropical content, right? You want to put out your opinion in that manner as well. Please go ahead and do it. You, the question obviously I'm looking at, and the first question is, but where do we do these publications, right? Either through journals, through the entire process that you have to follow, or you look at certain blogs, these policy blogs that are there to offer. You have Youth Ki Awaaz, Public Policy India, and a few other blogs as well, websites, which provide you that platform to go ahead and do the research and publish it as well. If you are not someone who doesn't want to do that, you can also do self publications either through the platform called Medium, or the best that Divyaish and I use extensively, which is obviously LinkedIn. And put out your research, put out your opinion, and do the heavy working of building a profile in policy altogether. The next part, obviously, if you want to enter into public policy as a fresher or someone who's transitioning and doesn't qualify with the JD requirements, one of the best ways to enter the sector is through fellowships. That's how I made my transition. I did my Teach for India fellowship, gave me right through exposure that was required. Just there are two type of fellowships that you can be looking at. Either these are systemic fellowships, that is when you're working with the government, right? You have Niti right now, LAMP fellowship. Madhya Pradesh just closed their Nipun Bharat fellowship as well. These are opportunities for a certain period, either 1 year or 2 year, but a contractual working ecosystem that you build in, where you are provided a larger systemic approach to the entire working of the ecosystem. Or you can be someone who, like me, who wants to work at grassroots with the community. So there are certain beneficiary fellowships that are offered: Gandhi Fellowship, Teach for India Fellowship, SBI Youth India Fellowship, IIC Fellowship, so many, so forth, that you can be take forward, again contractual for 1 to 2 years, and work at the grassroots level to make a difference and understand the policy implementation at a larger scale. The last, but something that everyone should be doing this, is networking. You cannot make headway in public policy till the time you have spoken to and have that interaction with other professionals. This, please definitely use LinkedIn extensively, um, to not just connect or follow someone, but to actually have a conversation with these individuals, these professionals who can guide you better and also provide you opportunities, job opportunities that are there. Then obviously WhatsApp group. Divesh here runs an exceptional WhatsApp group where he provides information and also so many other opportunities. Please be a part of such WhatsApp groups and communities that really can help you in your development as well. Meetups, obviously, conference and workshop, no other better way of networking other than in being in person. Follow these four, I mean, I would suggest 3 out of these 4 ways of making the first step into your professional sector, like a professional transition into the policy sector. Next slide itself. We would be coming with another masterclass, which would be around LinkedIn and personal development, talking about the 4 stages, but in a much detailed manner, with a more step-by-step approach of how you can make this transition for yourself, or even an entry-level work that you have to do into the policy sector. Divesh, I'll request you to take forward the entire presentation now.
Thank you, Ashima. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. I see a lot of I see a lot of questions in the chat box. I mean, this is encouraging that we people are so much interested into this. So we'll just I'll just share my screen again, and we want to talk about the most crucial aspect if you're entering into the job market. And how do you get into it? What are the key aspects that you kind of need to look into? And this is something that I'm going to talk about with my personal experience, because finding back in 2018 when I joined public policy regime, so finding a job was pretty difficult at that stage, where especially as a lawyer you're trying to transition into public policy, but now it's become very easy. So I wanted to talk about, so we are focusing a lot on two aspects here. The first is identifying a job opportunity, whether it is suitable for you, whether there is a job opening. It's all about finding if there is a job open wherein you fit in, right? And then we are going to talk about how do you apply for the role, right? So the first crucial aspect of identifying any job opportunity is leveraging LinkedIn. I mean, a lot of my interviews that I got was through LinkedIn. A lot of the offers I got was through LinkedIn only. So do not underestimate the power of LinkedIn. Why? Because your potential employers are there. They are hiring, right? The other aspect is something that I wanted to use, which is using the job portals like Naukri. You have Indeed, you have Devinfo, then you have Glassdoor, then you have IM Jobs. So these are all portals where you need to create your account, and you kind of want to target the right opportunity there. Search for the right opportunity, and you want to target there. One of the most important aspects that I want you to focus on is keywords. Keywords are the key. You don't want to One of the reasons why people don't want get jobs, because they don't search for the right job. So if you're searching for someone, let's say a role of a policy manager, not every company has a policy manager. They do hire people who work into public policy, but they don't call them policy managers. They might call them a corporate affairs professional, or maybe just call them a policy officer, maybe call them an executive officer, right? So you have to be very sure of the keywords that you are using to search the right opportunity, right? Then obviously you have job groups. There are a lot of WhatsApp groups that are running around, which keep on providing job updates, which keep on sharing updates about internships, about jobs into this sector. Every now and then, I think every day we get around 10 notifications of openings across India, right? Then, of course, networking is another way to kind of understand if there is an opportunity. If you have friends who are working into the public policy space, if you have seniors who are working into the public policy space, or you have someone you've contacted on LinkedIn, you can just ask them if they have an opportunity open. Not everybody might reply to you, but it doesn't matter, because even if one person replies, and even if you get the one thing right out of the 100 people you message, it just matters that you have to be right once, right? You have to get a reply once, and that's how you get in. And then we want to, if you have through official websites is another way. You want to search, if you want to go into the government, you can just search on their websites. Nowadays government have a space, a separate recruitment section, whether in Niti Aayog, Invest India, whatever you call, they have a separate recruitment section. You can just go on there, you can see what kind of openings that are there, whether it's in a job, or if you're a student who wants to do an internship, right? Then the next process that comes in is talks about how do you apply for this role, right? Now this is a very interesting topic which needs a separate 2 hour conversation for this, and Ashima and I are going to talk about this. We are going to conduct another masterclass on this particular thing, this particular aspect, wherein we will be talking about uh, how do you get shortlisted, what is the CV all about, what is the cover letter all about. So one of the I think a lot of my opportunities, the interview calls that I got was through my cover letter, and not just cover letter, but there are organizations who ask you 5 or 6 questions, right? They just put a case before you, and they want you to kind of give your answer. That gives them an understanding about your psychology, and that makes them, that helps them make the choice of whether they want to proceed ahead with you or not. So you need to be very kind of aware of what you're writing, right? The next topic is assignment. uh, a lot of companies that hire in public policy, after you have been shortlisted, they give you an assignment to do. The assignment could be making a note of a 2 3 pages, or maybe give you a case study, like I said earlier, also to come up with something round, come up with an answer to that. And if you qualify, if you are done with the assignment round, if you qualify the assignment round, then you proceed to the technical round, which is again where a senior person interviews you, where you again he puts you in situations where he tells you that what are you going to do in this particular situation. So like I said, it all, if you have been following the webinar till now, you will be able to relate that it all, in a way, it all turns about the recruiter trying to understand your problem solving approach, and how do you look at a particular problem, and are you able to give a solution to that, right? So that is the skill that you need to develop, and that comes with time. But you have to, but if you want to increase the process of learning, you have to be very, you have to be willing to spend some time on solving different case studies. We will be, obviously, in our masterclass that we're going to come up in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about this in detail, where we'll be also providing some of the case studies to you. The next one is, obviously, if you are done with the technical rounds, then the final round is with the leadership. Let's say if you are into a consulting firm, so the consulting firm, the leader is the partner there. So he kind of assesses you whether you're in the right fit or not. And if you're going into a law firm, then the leader is the partner there. Then if you're going into the government, then the leader is the, maybe he could be the joint secretary, or maybe could be the director. Depends on the kind of responsibility that you're going to be hired on. And obviously the final is the HR round, wherein they kind of want to negotiate a lot of things with you. So, like I said, I informed earlier, we will be coming up with a CV and job interview masterclass very soon, in the next couple of weeks. So, we want you to be part of that also, wherein we are going to talk about, we are going to have some JDs with us, and we are going to go through the JD in detail, and we are going to break down the JD, and we are going to make sure that we are going to talk about on how a CV should be structured, so that you get at least shortlisted. After you get shortlisted, then you have to worry about the interview rounds. We are going to be talking about the interview rounds there also, and then we are going to be talking about how do you connect with HRs for identification of opportunities, and the most important thing that we're going to be talking about is how do you provide value to the prospective employer, because that's a very crucial point. Ashima, you want to add something here?
No, Devesh, I think you beautifully covered everything. Just loving the part that you'll have negotiation rounds. There'll be so many of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've done it very well.
So, so let's go to the next slide. I think this is a bonus point that we wanted to talk about, and how do you stay updated, because policy is all about staying updated with the recent changes that are happening. Like today, the Parliament building got, the building was kind of opened, and then we are having discussions around that here. So we are going to, so you have to be updated with these kind of development. Then here are some official sources that generally a public policy professional uses, because see, one thing I wanted to also specifically stress here is that public policy has got a lot to do with what the government is doing, right? You have to be very understanding of what the government is doing, what are the changes it is bringing, right? So these are the some of the official sources wherein we also use, I also use, Ashima uses, a lot of us professionals use these sources to get our information. This is the PIB, the Press Information Bureau. Then we have the e-gazette, wherein whatever the new gazette comes in, whatever the new regulations comes in, they are published there. Then obviously we have Niti Aayog, which is a think tank of the government of India. Then we have Invest India, which is a one-point solution for any investment that anybody wants to invest in India. It's a one-point solution which talks about the Indian business environment. Then recently, I mean, this year we have the G20 presidency. So G20 is a lot in news. So you can just go g20.org to kind of stay updated with this. And also you can use LinkedIn to connect with different professionals like Ashima and me. We keep sharing uh, the developments that keep on happening. I in my WhatsApp group keep sharing a lot of developments that keep happening. So, and these are the second of unofficial sources that I just spoke about: LinkedIn, policy websites, news reports, and other. So in a nutshell, if I were to conclude, I would say that there is a lot of scope in public policy. Why? for this reason that the India is evolving at a faster pace. We are now the fifth largest economy, and whenever you grow, issues pop in, and whenever issues pop in, we need professionals who can understand these issues. And it is not, there may be sector experts everywhere, but when it comes to understanding the issue, and when it comes to making the government understand the industry issues, or when it comes to researching, there is a certain skill set that only public policy professionals have, and specifically the lawyers who want to transition into the space of public policy have. So I'll end my words here, and I want Ashima to kind of share a few thoughts before we conclude this. Ashima, over
Yes.
to you.
Thank you so much, Divyaish, and thank you everyone for being here. Two things that I really want to talk about, right? The first is that none of these sessions, as an introductory session, can provide you with a full down framework or an approach of exactly what you should be doing. What we can provide is value addition to the already thought process that you have, or probably nudge you in a certain way of what you can explore, what all is there that the sector is offering you. At the end, it will all depend upon you and your preferences, your skill set, your qualifications of how you want to take up policy professional roles in terms of different sectors, areas, employers, and so forth. So I hope we have done justice to the first part of the work, the expectation that we had. The second part that I really wanted to talk about is this, right? Great work, Division. All of you to be connected with us so that major now once the introductory level is done for all of us, we can now make it more cohesive. We can break down and get into the nitty-gritties of the work in terms of framing your approach step or anything with respect to CV and cracking your job interviews as well. So our humble, I think we hope that this has been useful and insightful to you. We hope that at least we meet in Netflix terms, we have met 60-70% of your expectations. If yes, then I will say Seema Auntie says we have done it. We are well. We are sharing both our LinkedIn profiles and the Divyaish WhatsApp group as well on the chat. We would request all of you to definitely join it and take it forward. We'll now, I think, Divyaish, open this for Q&A and have Shivam take it forward for us.
Maybe Shivam can take it forward from here.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Ashima. Thank you, Divyaish. The session was wonderful. It was completely information-packed session. The next 1.5 hour, the previous 1.5 hour was so nice. Like the people were glued to the fact that the things which you were teaching them. They were completely interested in it. They were asking tons of questions. One of the testament which I can give from my side is that the students loved it was the fact that the students who were joining, they didn't drop out from the whole session which was happening. Nobody dropped out. The number didn't build up. It's usually like people usually sign up for it and they go down. But here the fact that the students were here till the end shows the successfulness of this event. So that's the positive which I could say is for both of you that the first step which you guys have taken is completely in the right direction, and the students are completely in consonance with your thoughts. All right. So so with this, we will move on to the Q&A. And before we move on to the Q&A, I would like to welcome I would like to welcome Anand Verma ji. Is Anand Verma ji here? Divesh
Yes, I'm
is
here.
sir
Yes,
has
Shivam,
logged in.
I'm here.
Okay, great. Good evening, sir. Good evening. So before I would like to do a quick introduction of Anandji, and then he can take over it from me. So CS Anand Verma is a fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He also holds a law degree along with a master's in commerce. Mr. Verma is an esteemed member of the FICCI IB Forum. He has completed his graduation in commerce from the prestigious BHU and has more than 12 years of experience working in areas of trademark, startup advisory, policy advisory, and others. He is the founder of the legal ed tech startup Let's Learn Law, recognized by DPIIT, and the tech-enabled website Easira, which facilitates online solutions for drafting all kinds of legal documents in just a few clicks. Also, he has been a part of and has assisted at more than 10 committees appointed by the Honorable High Court of Delhi, comprising of retired judges from Honorable High Court, Delhi, High Court, sessions court, additional district judge along with joint registrars, senior most central government officials, official liquidators, Delhi High Court. Anand Verma, sir, I really welcome you to the tonight's event. Thank you for this. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shivam, for such a nice introduction. And first of all, I would like to uh, thank and congratulate Ashima and the base for such a wonderful session. And all the participants must have taken so much out of this session. What a public policy is, and such a deep introspection into the public policy. In just, I know this, it would be very difficult for Ashima to collate everything in just 1.5 hours to Asma and Divyaish. But I would really say that very beautifully, both of you have done this and given a broad idea what a public policy is. So I'm a founder of a Let's Learn Law, a legal edtech startup recognized by DPIIT. So along with the team, Ashipa and Divyaish, we have done a lot of brainstorming on this before doing this session, and we are seeing the importance of public policy, how it is growing up and increasing like anything. So to give benefit to the lawyers, fresher or the league or the students who are doing the law courses, or the professionals like company secretaries or other legal professionals. So how they could get the benefit of how they could know what a public policy is. So to solve all these issues, we have come out with a certificate course of 1 month, that is fundamentals of public policy. So we have designed this course in such a way, right from the basic knowledge of the public policy, we will be giving you we will this course. After doing this course, it will enhance your knowledge and abilities in the field of public policy. It will help you understand the intricate world of public policy, its core concepts, process, and challenges. And most amazing part is that where you will get to know the practical challenges, the real life scenarios of a public policy. And we have, as a bonus to this course, we are offering a one month. After you will complete this course, we are offering a 1 month mentorship. And there is no need to tell more about Ashima and the base, how they both will be giving you one-on-one sessions, personalized mentorship, guidance on career development. And we have uh, prepared this course, and we have divided it into 6 modules, right from the introduction to public policy and evaluation, policy making and process, policy areas and approaches, and policy communication and advocacy. And the last one, which is very much important, is career in public policy. So we are going to give you a broad insights. Why I will not take it, because much of has talk has been done about public policy during this session. But little bit of my experience I would like to share. In the initial career, I was fortunate enough to I started as a career initially as a company secretary, and then later on as a lawyer. So in the initial part of my career, I joined the High Court, the Delhi High Court, and there is a department in Delhi High Court. Today you know about the insolvency and bankruptcy court, but earlier it was winding up division. So all the companies which goes into winding up. So all the the official liquidator of the High Court used to handle this. So I was handling many companies there, and during that course, the Companies Act 2013 was going to be implemented. So as Asima told you, that it is not a public policy, is a overnight work, but it involves lot and lot of. So at that time, when the public that Companies Act was being implemented, so there were different sections. So we were the our department was given in charge of drafting the intricacies of the winding up, how this winding up will going to be devolved into the new Companies Act. So there I at that time I used to assist 10 committees. So we were doing such a brainstorming sessions in these public policy, and it is I will tell you, it is very much less talked about, but it is very much interesting and adventurous career field. So, and India, as we know, that it is such we are the fastest growing economy. And just a brief, I would give you that you must be hearing lot of work the government is doing, the present central government, which is in India. So the most unprecedented thing that has been happened in the entire history of mankind, that is the digitization process, which the government of India has done. So either you take the digitization process, or the we can talk about the Ujjwala Yojana, or Startup India, a Skill India. I do lots and lots of mentorship on this startup. So these things are not just overnight. I will let you know that in 2014, when this government taken in charge, you must be hearing these some terms like lateral entry. So lateral entry is like the professionals like us who has experiences, or who want to work, who want to assist the government. So assist the government in what? In policy framing, how the government decision will be implemented, how it is going to impact the society at large. So these things are going to, how this will going to benefit the entire India. So these are things which are growing up. So I would like you. So very soon we will sending you the details when we are starting this course, how to enroll it. So all the things we will be informing you. Over to you, Divyaish. Thank you for giving me time.
Thank you, Mr. Verma. Thank you. Over to you, Shivam.
Yeah, Divyaish. All right. So, are we up for any questions and answers? Are you up for
I think we can take a couple of them. You want to take, Ashima? A couple of questions, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Some that we have not been able to answer, or even for we have people here, they can unmute and ask us the questions as well.
Please feel free to put out your questions. I think one of the most important quality that a policy profession should have is to ask questions. I think.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
Firstly, I would like to thank you both for giving us such great insight in such short amount of time. I'm really glad for that.
Thank you.
And my question is, I myself is an enthusiast who want to enter into the field of public policy, and in the next round of LAM fellowship, I would like to apply. So, what are the skill set according to you I should be brushing on in order to have an edge while I apply?
Please take it, Ashima.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Franka. And definitely, I think someone else is also up for a next round for LAM fellowship. See, typically look at 2-3 skills, depending upon which year of the college you are. Develop more in terms of your research skills, and have a number of uh, publications in that manner, which also showcase that you have done the research, b you are able to translate that research into an easier format and a language to other person. And also then it increases your profiling in your CV as well. So that'll be like a 1, 2, 3 skills all together: writing, drafting, analysis, that you should be brushing upon as well. The second thing that we would say is obviously problem solving, right? Even for LAM fellowship, you are going to be working with the designate MP MLAs. That's a lot of problem solving that is going to happen on a daily basis, right? And Shivam here will also give you a better idea of what a day it looks like for a LAM fellow, in terms of solving the issue or even providing recommendations that is there. The most important thing for you should be that you are aware of what's happening around you. That's a skill, as well as a knowledge that you should be keep reading upon, understanding the different multi factors that are happening in the country, the developments that are there altogether. I think third skill that you can really brush upon is look at networking, and as well as certain other quantitative I would say knowledge paths that you can acquire. I'm not so sure how long do you have, your study still studying. But if you are someone who can grasp into certain certificate courses or certain knowledge sessions that are there for public policy, statistics, quantitative data, then that'll be a great, I think, CV or a profile building that you can do altogether. But at the same time, don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do connect with Shivam after the call, Priyanka. Do send him, and Shivam, please share your email, your LinkedIn as well, right? Keep networking with people who are LAM fellows and get a better idea from them.
Yeah, so
Sure, ma'am.
that's actually a plus. You are getting connected with someone who has been a. One thing I would say is that over the years, the application has also undergone change. So the level of competition has also increased. So
Shivam, your
I
voice
believe
is
like
like,
like what you should do in terms of like ensuring that that your apt candidate for the land fellowship. Just one or two things which I would suggest that in addition to that, if I may, is first that ensure that there is a lot of leadership position also in your CV. If you can show something like that, that yeah, you are somebody like let's say even something simple thing like a model United Nation, or you have participated in some international conferences. So they are looking for a researcher, but they are also looking for a young leader, like a young change maker. So if you can come across as somebody, like who's not just like a academician sort of, but also somebody who's more of like a public speaker sort of, uh, I think like in my sense like that is something which could help which could work, you know. Uh, yeah. So that's the one thing which I would
thanks,
Thank
Shivam.
you so much, Shiva. We'll surely notice.
Right.
say.
We're also being
Do we go
cognizant
to
of,
the next question?
yeah.
I don't think we have any.
We have I go ahead with the questions.
इतनी अच्छी सेशन हो गया. Everyone's all queries are solved. Everyone's ready to make their
I
head
think
ready for the
a lot of the questions they are already asked in the registration form. So we've covered everything into the. I think
definitely.
Sakshi has a
Sakshi,
question. Yeah,
please go
Sakshi,
ahead.
please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So, yes, your session was very interactive. But yes, I'm a law graduate. I've recently completed a master's in law, in constitutional law. So, actually, one of the primary reasons why I did my master's was because when I started applying for the fellowships, there was a requirement for post graduation, right? So now, when I'm done with it, and when I'm applying for the fellowships or for job opportunities, so a lot of them require some prior work experience of 1 year at least. So I am actually a little confused here because what should I do here? I mean, I really want to I want to start working in policy sector, not really in litigation or legal sector because I kept it on the side. So I just wanted to know this as to what should I on what opportunity should I apply for to get some experience in policy, and some of the tips that you give me, I'm all yours.
So you want to take it, Ashima?
Sure, sure. Sakshi, can you tell us which fellowships are you applying for right now?
Yeah, so I applied for the Chief Minister Fellowship programs, and for Haryana I've applied before, Nipun I've applied. All of them had
Yeah,
some
Nipun required. Yeah,
1 year.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
and also some opportunities I've kept applying since the past 2-3 months. So what I've noticed, it's a common pattern that they somewhat require an experience of at least 1 year, and I have an experience of 4 to 6 months, like in law itself. So I just want to know how I should go about, and even for the and also second thing that I've seen, that there's a lot of writing involved, like they ask for articles and all. So I want to know if what are they looking for even in CV, like are they looking for what my qualifications or experience that leads to a career in policy, or what my take is on issues. So, like, what
Uh,
if I have to give, like, what weightage is given to between both these things?
Perfect.
so
Thank you so much. Actually, very well articulated as well. So, if I look at fellowships, right, especially for your specific case scenario where you've already done the masters, there are certain, if the idea is that you are looking for certain these kind of fellowships, which is at governance level, and the requirement you're matching it again is of a work experience, there are few different ways that you can fulfill the requirement, right? You can start exploring other job avenues and other job opportunities that are there, which is where you build up your profile, build up your CV, so as to your now be able to qualify for the next round, which will only happen in the next year, for these fellowships that you're looking for. um, and at the same time, there are a lot of freelance consulting work that you can also do, especially if you are working for a policy consulting and even for government advisory work that you are looking forward. So, like a very simple, a very straightforward answer that I've given you, right, would be that why don't you acquire that experience and then go forward and apply it? It might not make sense as well, but there are different ways how you can navigate the scenario as well. In terms of CV building for research articles and concept notes and assignments that they're asking that they provide you, there's always a diverse thing that they're looking at. They're looking at how you're able to read uh, a scenario, understand what are the different factors are playing in. You are someone who is able to comprehend how economy plays or finance is playing into policy or social sector altogether, with respect to the problem or with respect to solutions, and also like how innovative are your solutions put forward, because ऐसा नहीं है these problems have never existed or that someone has never thought of these solutions. That's not the case. What they're looking for is also your uniqueness and your innovativeness in those problem statement or assignments that they're providing you. So research wise, if you're looking to just build it, then why don't you look at more topical content for putting up your publications that also give a sway of interest in terms of giving a very innovative viewpoint. Again, very limited and a very straight answer I've given you. We can obviously discuss more, Divesh, but also would love to discuss it more with you to just guide you through how you can take it forward from here. Divesh, do you want to
yeah,
add something?
I think yeah. I mean, see, in my understanding, a lot of places you apply, you have to look at the JD and you have to make sure that your candidature fits into the requirement of the JD. I mean, I'll give you an example. One of the call I got, when I was shortlisted, I specifically tailored my JD with respect to the job profile which was there. I just whatever they wanted, I had already done that before, but I had to express in a way that they understand, right? So, and the other thing that I did was I wrote a lot of articles because and publication to me took a lot of time because if I was sending an article somewhere to get published, it took a lot of time. They would take a week or some maybe take 2 weeks to kind of just go through the article and then publish it. Whereas if I publish it on LinkedIn, it's free and it can be done very easily, and all my stakeholders are on LinkedIn. So what I did was I published around 7, 8 articles or whatever I had written, and then I compiled them and then I sent it to them, and that's how I got shortlisted. So I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say, but that's how I did, and maybe that's one thing that you can try. And apart from that, fellowships and 1 year of experience they generally ask in public policy. And if you don't have, if you want to go into some place where you can gain this experience, maybe try. Since you're a lawyer, maybe try going to law firms where they have a communications department wherein they work with a lot of these government bodies, they work with a lot of embassies. So there are certain law firms who work with embassies a lot, right? Because embassies bring in businesses from foreign countries. So you can maybe try a law firm who works with the German embassy, for example. So they will have obviously want you to connect with them and understand what the role is, what the government scenario is like. So that's how you gain the experience in that segment, and then after that, once you've gained that, you can maybe try to kind of apply based on that 6 months late. But you have to be well aware that if you don't have the relevant experience, they won't even take you into consideration. So I mean, patience is the key here, if it makes any sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We just take one more question. I think we're running out of time here.
Yeah.
So please
Yeah,
take one more.
Priyanka has raised her hand. So Priyanka, do you have a question?
If If no
Yeah,
one
go.
else has, then only I'll ask. Otherwise, you can give the opportunity to someone.
No,
Oh
no,
yes,
please go
Priyanka
ahead.
already asked.
So my
Perfect. Do we
question
have
is,
any other question? Otherwise, Priyanka, I think you can go forward and ask.
yeah, we'll end with
Yeah.
Priyanka's take.
Perfect.
One.
Priyanka, so please go ahead and ask.
Yeah. So my question is in line with what Sakshi asked. There are some fellowships and internship, even though the requirement is not like they do not mention minimum requirement as work experience, but since there is so much flood of applications out there, so being experts, what do you all think? What are they looking for, and what is that cherry on cake kind of things we can do to have a greater edge? Even though the requirement is not there, but since there is so much application, I think what would be that extra steps we need to do?
Uh, See, like I said in my presentation also, uh, let's say you apply and there are 600 applicants to apply, or maybe 400 apply, or maybe even 100 apply, and they have to fill the position, let's say in the next 15 days or a month. I mean, you have to understand that it's not humanly possible to go through 100 applications. So what they do is they use the software to filter all the applications, and then the ones they have with relevant keywords, especially in this is into consulting firms. They do a lot of this through softwares, right? So you have to make sure that the keywords you're using in your CV align with the JD, and that's how you get shortlisted. That's how I got shortlisted. So let's say, for example, I applied in a consulting firm which was hiring on the someone who was drafting policy papers, or someone who has written that, and I had done policy recommendations, but I had also written policy papers, uh, you know, but I did not put policy papers into my CV. And so when the opportunity came to me, then I kind of uh, went back into memory and see what all I have done, and then I included it in my CV, and that's how I got the call. So that's how you separate yourself from the crowd. And apart from that, you have to have certain education into public policy. Whether if you don't have time for masters, you have to have certifications in that particular segment, right? Let's say if you're going to work with an embassy. Uh, I was recently called upon to as a youth delegate to work into the India Chile affairs. So I had done some work on the multilateral segment. On the bilateral segment, I written, but I did not. But I wrote a couple of articles also. So those articles helped me, into getting shortlisted as a youth delegate. So a lot of that has to. There's no straightforward answer to it, but you have to make sure that you tailor yourself according to the JD. That is my approach to it.
Great. Just Priyanka, I think there cannot be a single solution to this question altogether. You will have to keep looking at which position, which sector, which stakeholder you're applying, and then, like Divesh said, tailor making obviously your CV, but also prior to that, right? We talked about four different steps that you can do when you are trying to do your professional development. Spend some time to understand what is it that you are offering, what is that someone else at your level or at a senior level is providing, through LinkedIn as well, in terms of what are they doing, what have we done altogether to gain that much experience or even knowledge, to be able to conduct this session, or to be able to have, navigate our journeys throughout in the last 4 5 years that we've done. So my simple suggestion will be, don't look for single approach ki, for this fellowship, this kind of skills they're looking at, this is work for a person, let me just do the same thing and it will work out for me. Not at all. That might not work out, in an ideal world as well. So two things you do. One, obviously, build yourself, your skill set, your experience, your knowledges professionally, network with everyone to develop it. Second, what Devesh mentioned, right? Once you're applying, everything will get down to the CV that you're sending or the SOP assignments that has to happen. That is where the difference that you can make. And what Devesh said, I think he already covered everything. Okay, perfect. I think that we've covered, we hope we've covered everything. And Devesh, you'll be Rupanjali has asked a very good question, right? She's asking, what's your vision behind this initiative to providing the guidance to us?
Please
Uh,
let us know what we discussed.
no, I think thank you so much for asking, and such an interesting question. I think the simple thing, we didn't talk much about our journey, right? We assume that you guys would have followed and you guys know us a bit. So we didn't delve into how did we enter the sector altogether. But the journey, obviously, the transition was not easy. We didn't find such similar individuals or guidance or help altogether to make this decision of what should happen, where should we look at. And we did struggle. I think it was, personally for me, it was very frustrating to come from a corporate background with, securities market, from Khaitan into the sector altogether. And I just needed that guidance, a bit of like someone just telling me, not spoon feeding, but obviously give me a nudge altogether. I think that's what we are trying to bring in this initiative altogether. We are
Yeah.
trying to break the boundaries. We're trying to not be territorial with whatever we have, whatever information,
In a
knowledge, whatever it is,
yeah,
and just
in a nutshell,
make it easy.
in a nut, yeah, in a nutshell, I just want to put it like in a nutshell, we took the long way, so we want you to help, get a short way to understand to understand the mistakes that you've already made, so that you do not take as much time as we did. Right?
Yeah.
That's in a nutshell. If you want. Okay,
Our lesson,
thank you,
I think,
everyone.
in our lesson.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think over to you, Shivam.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Divesh. Thank you, Ashima. Thank you, audiences, for the lovely response and the amount of interaction and the engagement you guys did. It was you guys only, who made this event successful. You ensured that whatever was being taught to you, you took it all from both of your hands, and you still are very passionate about it. Some of you has already walked into the journey and still looking for the destination. Some are preparing themselves to get into the journey. I'm sure that this session is definitely going to be that path-breaking journey for you guys, and it will be an eye-opening journey for all of you. With this, I would like to conclude this session. I would like to thank